Hello, guys. Hope you all had a really nice lunch break. We have the incredible Alice Law with us now. Alice is amazing. She is just such a a great person when it comes to stress and anxiety, but also happiness and finding joy and meaning in life. And Alice and her incredible friend Mo came on my podcast recently, and it was such a popular episode. So I'm so excited that we're doing this. I'm so happy you're here, and we feel very lucky that we've got you. And I am going to let you take it away. And then, as always, we'll do a Q&A afterwards, but I'm really looking forward to this. So thank you so much, Alice.
Thank you so much for having me. So
Pleasure.
wonderful to be here with you guys.
Oh, your sound has just gone a tiny bit.
One sec, let me just do the audio. Can you hear me?
I can, but it's very muffly compared to when we were just speaking.
Technical hitches. The
Mhm.
micro stress of life.
That's better. Maybe you were
That,
just being quieter. That seems
maybe.
better.
I can turn it up a bit as well.
That's much better. Perfect.
Okay.
Oh, and if there were any, did you have any resources or anything for this?
Yeah, I think it's attached
Put it
in
in
the
there.
resources for later.
Perfect.
Yeah,
So you
perfect.
can share your screen, click on resources, and do the whole thing. Okay. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Okay, guys. Well, I'm super excited to be with you today. Like Bryony said, so I'm a stress management consultant. This is essentially my bread and butter, what I love to do. And I speak about this a lot, go into companies and talk to people and individuals on how to manage and prevent stress and anxiety. And today I want to talk to you a bit about really understanding, okay, why that's important, limiting the needless stress in our life, what that actually is, as well as a method in the second half to help you navigate stress and be able to start to move through stress and anxiety more effortlessly, and some quick hacks for anxiety. So we've got lots to cover, but it's not going to be overwhelming. And just to let you know, in the second half, the PDF that's linked in the resources bit for this event, and you'll have that after or now, you don't even need to read it as we're going along. It's just there so that you guys have the entire method written down and you don't have to be scribbling notes really quickly. So try to make it as stress-free as possible. So let's talk a bit about what stress actually is and the magically huge misunderstanding of it today in the modern world. So first of all, not all stress is bad. Stress's primary function is to keep us safe. It was a survival mechanism to keep us out of danger. And our brain's primary function is actually to keep us safe too. So it is constantly through our amygdala, which is essentially a part of the brain that's connected to the limbic system. It's responsible for things like survival, memory, learning, behavior, and emotional responses, particularly related to threats, fear, anxiety, and rage. And you have to think of the amygdala as sort of like your own personal security guard. It is constantly always scanning for threats without you having to tell it to do so, in order to try and keep you safe. Well, what it perceives today as to be threats. So when a little threat comes along and it's decided that's a threat, it will trigger another part of your brain, the hypothalamus, to ignite your nervous system to set off the infamous fight or flight stress response, your sympathetic nervous system. And so this will fire up. So when a lion in the olden days was coming out of the bushes in cave times, your body's stress response will go on, your fight or flight. And what would happen then was essentially a cocktail of stress hormones will start to reconfigure you into essentially being superhuman. So things like adrenaline, the infamous stress hormone cortisol, noradrenaline, and it will fire up your body in that moment to help you to do the things you need to survive in literally a life or death situation, because that's what it believes is going on. So it will do things like sending blood to the muscles and away from your digestion, for example, as your body's wise intuition would be, why do I need to digest a steak if I'm about to become a steak myself when a lion's about to eat me? That's the kind of threats level it perceives stress as. So it will do things like that, change your breathing to be rapid and increase your heart rate, so to give you extra energy and more oxygen to basically be able to deal with the threat. So once you'd run away from the lion, or if you're incredibly brave, fought it and got away with it, you would then, the threat was over, and your body will go back into parasympathetic state, which is our rest and digest. So in that state, our body will do things it needs to not just survive, but to actually thrive. So things like actually digesting our food and renewing our cells. So this function of stress, the survival mechanism we have, is incredible. And this type of stress that goes on and comes off, it's what we call eustress. It's the good kind of stress that we all need a bit of in our lives. It will get you out of the way when a car's about to hit you across the road. It would help you to win a running race, that kind of adrenaline you feel beforehand, or, talk on a stage or get a deadline over the line over a short period of time, a few days or a few hours, and you think, I'm really stressed, but you're working hard. And then once the deadline's in, your stress response comes back off. So it's not all bad. And in that sense, eustress can really help us to perform better and to survive, like I said. But this isn't the reason, obviously, this good stress for why so many of us are so stressed and anxious today. So the problem today is that what used to turn our stress response on for life or death only, the lion coming out of the bushes, now our stress response is constantly being activated in the modern world around us all the time, often without us even realizing, often when we think, I don't even have anything that stressful going on in my life right now. Why am I so stressed? Why am I so anxious? But namely, this gets activated by two things. So first being, our system hasn't caught up with the modern world that we've created. Your system, in terms of that system in your brain and your nervous system I just discussed, that hasn't had a reconfiguration and an upgrade, a software upgrade since cave times. It will still, in that primal instinct, set your stress response off for what it perceives as a threat. And now today, what used to set your stress response off for the tiger coming out of the bushes, it now gets set off for all the little activations of the modern world. So, getting stuck in a traffic jam on the way to a meeting, or having multiple WhatsApp notifications pinging you all day, the huge life events that obviously stress us, all these little tiny things. And the second thing is that our thoughts alone can trigger our stress response. They can turn it on. So it doesn't matter if you're thinking about something stressful over and over in your mind, or if it's actually happening in front of you, your brain can't tell the difference emotionally in its response as to whether that's real or whether it's happening in your head. So your stress response will still go on. So essentially, combining this with both the fact that being busy in the modern world, I'm sure you guys can all relate to this, it's become almost like a status symbol. We know more what it's like to be busy than we do to give ourselves space. And, if you ask a friend often, how am I? The response so often is, oh, I'm so busy. How are you? I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And it's become this automatic thing that we sort of feed into and feed off, as if like I'm busy as I'm needed, I'm wanted. And we allow ourselves to keep adding things, more and more things to our calendar, to our life, and not giving our system the space it needs to actually know that it's not under threat. So constantly being on the go, which is also counterproductive, because we know from studies that we are actually 31% more productive when we are happy and calm than when we're stressed and anxious over a period of time. So we don't understand our system, and then we wait to get to breaking point. And we kind of identify with stress and anxiety as being a normal part of our day-to-day and our day-to-week and our lives, which I'm going to talk more about later. So with this being the case, when we're simmering in chronic stress over a period, that builds up and up, not just because we have this huge life-altering event that goes on. Obviously, we know things that can cause us stress. The macro stresses in our life, things like death of a loved one, divorce, losing our job, a health crisis. Those are the things that we expect to cause us stress. And they do, but then they go away and we recover. And most people will actually experience what we call PTG, post-traumatic growth, after an event, and create more resilience within themselves. But chronic stress, the modern pandemic of stress, is actually built upon something completely different, not these huge life-altering events that we all are subjected to at some point in our life, but because we haven't taken responsibility for the micro stress that is in our system from the modern world, building up every single day without us saying to it, don't worry, you're safe. This isn't actually a life threat. Go back into parasympathetic state. So what I mean by this is our system, okay, in the modern world, a lot of stress, all this has been constantly flooded into it, like micro building blocks. So you have to think of micro external stresses as if they're like Lego, one at a time, building day to day on top of each other. So we call those, like I said, micro stresses. And in stress, in terms of stresses that come to us, we have micro and macro and internal and external. And the micro external, which we actually refer to in our book, Unstressable, those as nuisances. They are constantly the little nuisances all around us in the modern world. So it's the aggressive factory setting alarm that jolts you out of bed in the morning and gives you a shot of cortisol before you've even gotten awake. It is the multiple WhatsApp notifications constantly biting for our attention all through the day. It's the distressing news headlines that we read, you know, over and over, whether that's on social media, whether it's actually watching the news several times a day, you know, comparison on social media, our sort of obsession and addiction to our digital devices, which are constantly stimulating our system. Or, you know, like I said, even getting stuck in traffic on your way to an important meeting. These are all micro external stresses. And like I said, these build up in our system. One alone does us no harm. You know, no one has ever died from one WhatsApp notification or gotten stressed from that, not having replied to it. But who gets one? All of these things build up and build up. And we actually found in our research for our book Unstressable that the average person will have 15 to 18 micro external stresses before they've even left the house in the morning. And so can you imagine how much stress is building into your system by the time you get back or at the end of your day? So although these don't seem significant, this buildup really is that cause for that feeling of, okay, well, suddenly, you know, you run out of milk on your way out and you want to make a coffee and you think, you know, or you snap at your partner over nothing. It's not the actual micro stress that is so stressful. It's the buildup, the building block of stress in your system. And then that final micro stress becomes essentially the straw that breaks the camel's back. So with that in mind, just that little bit of awareness of how, you know, your thoughts can trigger your stress, and these micro stresses can really cause a lot of built up stress into our system. And we don't then tell our system at the end of the day, it's okay, there is no threat. That is why we have this sort of chronic stress simmering in the background. So if you're in the modern world, which we all are, unless you're sort of sat on a beach with a coconut and have no digital devices, you will be experiencing a lot of micro stress in your life. And so the first step that I wanted to talk to you about in this first half is what I call limiting the needless stress in your life. So a lot of the micro stress in our system can be changed. We just allow it in on that automatic modern day behavior. And these tiny little shifts of limiting needless stress allows you to bring down what I call your baseline of stress to something that's manageable. So if you have to think of it like this, if this is your baseline where your neutrality is and you feel calm, then usually we have a lot of micro stress building like this. And then a huge life event will happen and we're already up here and we really struggle to deal with it. Or another micro stress will come and we go over our own personal stress threshold. Because every individual has a unique stress threshold based on their past experiences, based on what they're able to handle. And sometimes, like I said, it is those little micro stresses that are the straw that breaks the camel's back. So I'd love for you guys for this next week, even these next few weeks, whilst you're doing the Pilates Promise Challenge, to actually take the step to limit 3 micro stresses in your life to help your system to reduce, to come back to that baseline so that you can deal more effortlessly with the stress that's coming in all the time. So some suggestions from me on this side of limiting that micro stress, and just notice, you know, how you feel after you've done this for 2 weeks, limited certain things, the reduction of that stimulation in your system. So limiting micro stress can be as simple as, changing your aggressive morning alarm to a soothing sound. For example, I have a meditation song in the background that gets louder and louder. And trust me, I'm like the biggest sleeper in the world. If I didn't have one that would wake me up, I would never get up. So it's something that gets louder, but it's soothing. And I actually had, a phone, a new phone, and I'd forgotten to put my new sound on. And I had the normal aggressive factory setting alarm by accident the other month. And I cannot tell you the difference in my system, how I felt that immediate cortisol hit. So doing stuff like changing your morning alarm sound, putting your phone in a drawer, what I call a phone cemetery, for just an hour in the evening, every evening, and having it out of sight, out of mind, not touching it, is another great one. So the average person we know will touch and swipe their phone 2,500 times a day, which is crazy when we think about it. And the reason is because if you see it, you will do it. Everyone knows that feeling of checking your phone when you haven't even had a message to come into, or you find yourself just suddenly doom scrolling on social media as autopilot. So it's really out of sight, out of mind. So putting our phone in a drawer for an hour, even 2 hours if you can, but an hour in the evening, and just using that as a conscious habit to be like, okay, well, at that time, I'm going to consciously connect with my loved ones, or I'm going to do something for myself that's active relaxation, things like Pilates, things like, drawing, walking, reading, all things that bring us back into rest and digest. And other little limits can be, limiting the amount of time that we watch the news, because that's always setting our stress response off with all the horrible things that go on in the world. Limiting the amount of time we spend on social media. And it can be totally up to you. You will know and recognize the little micro stresses in your life. So I would love for you guys to choose 3 that you're going to limit over these next weeks, and just see how you feel after 2 weeks of limiting it. And then try to continue it after that. But you can hold each other accountable. You have a wonderful community here to be able to do it together. But it's just that starting point to do what we call limiting the needless stress in your life, so you can bring it down, back down from that baseline to the baseline, and allow yourself to not be working off this space where your system is already really full of stress. And then when big things come in, whether that's the stress with work that you're dealing with, or a relationship problem, a crisis, your system is already so high at its capacity. So it's so much better to every day limit these things and bring it back down. So like I said, the modern crisis of stress is driven by 2 simple things: these micro stresses in the environment that we've put in, and then doing nothing to reduce the stress in our system that it then gets and increases. And also by actually not understanding our system itself. So we talk about this in our book, in Unstressable, that stress is not actually one blanket thing. The topic of stress is, okay, stress is this one thing, but it's actually broken down into 4 parts: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual stress. And although I can't go through all of these in huge detail today because of the time, I'm going to teach you a method now that actually helps you to manage some of those as well. But I'll briefly explain which each one is. So your mental stress is exactly what it sounds. It is the rumination, worrying about the future, ruminating about the past, constantly being in your thoughts, waking up at night with stressful thoughts, or not being able to focus and be fully present. Emotional stress shows up in both our behavior and our feelings. So you can feel, stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, easily irritated, or low in mood, even depressed. But if you don't feel that way, and you might be someone who's like, well, I never get stressed, I don't feel that way, your behavior will show you when you're emotionally stressed. So our behavior when we're emotionally stressed changes, and we do things to suppress and numb and try to distract and move away from our emotions. So things like comfort eating, binge watching Netflix, overworking to distract ourselves, over socializing, reaching for a glass of alcohol as that immediate relief rather than doing something to actually calm our nervous system. Trouble with memory loss, forgetting things, walking into a room being like, oh, I forgot why I'm even in here. Lower libido and trouble sleeping. These are all, and getting easily irritated and snapping. These are all very simple signs of emotional stress. Your physical stress is obviously as obvious as it sounds, but we always think that's nothing to do with stress. So it is stuff like headaches, tension headaches, digestive issues, IBS, constipation, stomach ulcers, backache, neck ache, a lot of muscle aches, things like an increased heart rate, higher cholesterol, inflammatory skin things like psoriasis and hives, losing our hair, even thinning from stress. And then even things like those more sinister things like type 2 diabetes and even heart disease. So those are the physical signs of stress. And then spiritual stress shows up in a different way, which is one of my favorite ones, which is essentially when we are disconnected from our intuition and the truest, most authentic version of ourselves, our soul self. So when we can't answer the question, who am I, without even answering with a label, like I'm a mom, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, when that's not who we are, it's what we are. And so our spiritual stress shows up as that feeling of disconnection and feeling a lack of purpose, feeling inauthentic to ourselves and being pulled around by what the world wants from us rather than what we know is right for us. So today I'm going to teach you now, and this is where the PDF that you'll find afterwards and the resources is just linked. I'm going to teach you a process that essentially I created that helps you to deal with parts of these. So your mental, emotional, and a bit of spiritual stress mainly for this method, because Bryony already helps you incredibly with your physical. So I thought I wouldn't touch on the physical today, because as I'm sure you guys all know, Pilates is an incredible stress reliever. It helps to decrease inflammation in the body and is an anti-inflammatory exercise, and also brings you back into the body as a form of mindfulness. So it's wonderful. So this method, and like I said, you'll have this, so you don't need to scribble down loads of notes, so don't worry, is what I call the emotional embodiment method. So it's a concept that essentially is made of 3 parts, and it helps you to disidentify with stress, to pattern interrupt the stressful thoughts of your brain, and to embody and step into that calmness that we all desire, essentially. So the first stage is what I call facts. So this stage helps us to pattern interrupt the swirling thoughts in our mind, you know, the worry, the rumination, the thoughts that are turning our stress response on. So the things where we think, oh my God, well, what if that's going to happen? What if that doesn't happen? You over and over false scenarios in our head that aren't even yet the facts. And this keeps our stress response active, as we actually know that from the start of when our stress response is fired, for the hormones to get completely dissolved and move through our system, it only takes 90 seconds. The reason it reactivates again is because of our thoughts, telling our brain, telling our system again, no, we're still under stress, keep going. So the loop continues. So with pattern interruption, with our mental stress and those stressful thought cycles that we know we all get into, it's a really important thing to break that spiral. So this part, facts, is when you feel and notice you're going in a spiral of anxious thoughts, stressful thoughts about something, and you notice it, pause, take a deep breath, and then ask yourself in your mind, or if you get really anxious, even get your journal out and write it down and ask yourself, as this helps with our emotional regulation. Ask yourself, what in this is fact and what is fiction? What thoughts that I'm having about this are fact and what are fiction? So an example would be, you know, you lose your job. The fact may be that, yes, you've lost your job. The fiction may be that your mind tells you you'll never get another one, that you will end up homeless, that you won't be able to pay your bills. These are not facts. This is fiction and future projection that your mind is giving you. So those kind of thoughts, like I said, they're not facts in the present, they are fiction. So pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what are the facts? And write them down, and even write down the fiction and cross those out. And then ask your brain directly, either out loud or internally, bring me a calming thought. Brain, bring me a thought that's calm. And choose again, consciously interrupt that pattern. The next stage is identity. So creating an identity of calmness or connecting to your true identity of the soul. I'll go through both, so whichever sits best with you. So when we're anxious and stressed, we tend to actually identify a lot as being anxious and stressed. And we can hear ourselves saying things like, I'm a really anxious person, or I'm really anxious in social situations, I'm always anxious, or I'm really unconfident, I'm really stressed. You'll notice you either saying this internally or saying this to people in conversations. And we make what I call a statement of identity, which reinforces the way we don't want to feel or the way that we don't want to be. And it allows our thoughts, allows ourself, allows our behavior to actually feed into that. So instead, we need to actually flip that over and create a statement of identity that can help to reinforce the way we want to feel, the way we want to be, and help us to move through these challenges, stressful situations with more ease and come out of that feeling. So stage 2, to have as, you can do this in the moment in a stressful situation, or you can do this just as a process to be able to use this identity that you can reflect on whenever you need to. So it would be to ask yourself, okay, what identity would help me in this situation? You know, what kind of a person would you like to be? So for example, if you're very anxious, you might want to have the identity of a calm and confident person. So your identity that you can just write down somewhere, and you'll change this into a question later. Your identity would be, I'm a calm person. And that might sound really far ahead for you right now, but it's just the identity stage. You don't have to believe it yet. So it's, I'm a calm person, or I'm a calm person, or someone who handles challenges with confidence. Something simple that really feels powerful and connected to you. So now you've decided, you know, what that identity is, okay, what's going to help you in that situation or day to day. You can then start to embody it. So stage 3 is embodiment. So for example, to embody someone in that situation that is calm and confident and at ease, we ask ourselves the question, flip it inward and ask yourself the question, what would a calm and confident person do? So if you're anxious that you just lost your job, for example, I'm going to use this as the example for this, and you're spinning around and racing thoughts and anxiety, you would ask yourself, okay, what would a calm and confident person do in this situation? You know, pause, take a deep breath, ask yourself, what would a calm and confident person do in this situation that I'm currently not? And then actually write down these micro little actions that a calm and confident person would do. So, you know, for example, in that situation, they would stop spinning in their head and they would take a deep breath. They would start to look at what jobs they want to put themselves forwards for and check in to see if it's still the same kind of industry that they were in before. They would apply for the jobs that they can and then let it go once they have, and work on themselves in the meantime to make themselves feel as strong and as good as they can. And they'd be confident in their ability to know that they will get a new one at the right time, at the right place. So writing all these little things down can help you to step into, to embody it, and to actually start to take those actions. So sometimes, like I say, it's a big situation, so you can write a list of little micro steps. Sometimes it's an immediate situation where someone's annoying you and has stressed you out, and you could ask yourself before reacting and exploding, what would a calm person do in this situation? Probably take a deep breath and walk away, or whatever it is that you need to sort of step into as an almost like an outside observer and start to embody that. Flip it around and ask yourself that question. You can also ask this question, and I wrote this in our book in the spiritual stress chapter. If you're someone who really identifies with the soul like me, and you know, our true self, our soul self, the soul is the calm, wise, non-judgmental, loving, kind, and you know, creative part of us that's always in there. You can also ask the question simply whenever you need, what would my soul do? What would my soul do? Because our soul and our human self, our human ego, is that side that reacts, that gets stressed, that has those fear-based thoughts. Our soul is calm, wise, non-judgmental, loving, it's light. And so just pausing and taking a deep breath and asking yourself in that moment, what would my soul do? Is also another amazing question to embody that. So to get into the embodiment of your true self and your soul, or get into the embodiment of that calm, confident person. And to even get into that soul self more, you can close your eyes, take a deep breath, and place your hand on your heart and actually breathe into consciously your heart space. So imagine breathing behind the space where your hands are held and asking that question with your eyes closed. What would my soul do? Soul, what would you do? And allowing that answer to come from that space. So this is just, it's a really good process to pattern interrupt your mind, to get you out of that headspace that's not helping you, that's actually exasperating our stress and anxiety without us even realizing, fact checking it, and then using the identity you've created, either in that moment or as an ongoing one you can come back to start to embody it, to ask yourself, what would they do instead? What little actions can I take that would actually help me if I was that person, which you are? And act as a calm and confident person. And the more you do this, the more you embody it and step into it with actions and breaking that spiral, the more it becomes a part of you. So to touch on anxiety quickly, your anxiety is not there because you can't handle life. Your anxiety is there because a part of you in your system thinks you can't handle what life might give you. So somewhere in your system, whether that's your mind, your conscious mind, whether it's your subconscious mind, your body's cellular memory from past disappointments and stresses, when we're anxious, we're often worried that what we're anxious about, we won't be able to handle, that something will go wrong. Even though most often that something hasn't yet happened and doesn't yet exist and often never does. That, for example, when you go to that job example, the anxiety could be that you'll never get a job again. And that's fiction, not fact. Or that you won't be liked at your new job. Again, fiction, not fact. If we have a breakup from someone and we tell ourselves, I'm never going to meet anyone again, that's fiction, not fact. So often when we're anxious, we feel so uncomfortable. I just want to give you 2 little anxiety hacks to help get you out of anxiety when you feel anxious, because I know anxiety is such a prominent thing in today's world that so many of us struggle with. So when you actually feel anxious, what we want to do is try and escape from our body because we feel so uncomfortable in it, in this anxiety, that we try to distract ourselves and we try to almost, remove ourselves from our body. But the opposite is true. When you're anxious, what we actually need to do is ground back into our body and regulate our nervous system that way. So when we do this and do something I'm about to tell you, we have to tell our body that it's safe. So 2 things to do when you're anxious. Number 1 is tell your body it's safe through actual physical somatic movement. So my favorite one to do for anxiety is what I call a zebra shakeout. So shaking your body from head to toe, like your limbs, raising your arms above your head, really shaking it out for 2 to 3 minutes and moving that anxiety through your system. The reason this works is because, like when a zebra would run away from a tiger in the wild, if it manages to get away, you'll watch a zebra do a full body shakedown. The same way if a dog was having a fight with another dog, it will do a huge shakedown afterwards. We are no different in terms of our nervous system in that way, mammals. So if you shake your body, you're telling your body and your nervous system, it's safe, all is well. So shake out your anxiety and let it out. And then the second thing is to tell your mind, once you've done that body shake, what you want it to do for you. So pause, take a deep breath. And I use something I use in my head called cancel, cancel. So saying either out loud or internally, cancel, cancel to my thoughts, canceling once with subconscious, once with the conscious. So cancel, cancel, and then take a deep breath and tell your brain what thought you want instead, the type. So brain, bring me a soothing thought. Brain, bring me a funny thought that will make me laugh. Brain, bring me a joyful thought, whatever it is, and then choose again. So those are just two little quick anxiety hacks I wanted to add in there because I know that, yeah, like I said, so many of us struggle with anxiety. So going back to that method again, like I said, it's all step by step in that PDF that you have been given. But the overview is, number one, what are the facts and what is the fiction? Ask yourself what's fact, what's fiction, and write it all down. And then ask your brain to bring you a calming thought. Number two is to create that identity. And like I say, you can have this identity as an ongoing thing that you've always got there, or you can create a different one in that situation that would be right for it. But create that identity. Okay, I'm a calm and confident person, whatever it is. And then three, embody that identity through asking the question and through actions. So pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what would a calm and confident person do? Or what would my soul do? And then take the action, step by step, little micro actions, and start to step into that. You know, have that as a reminder, that question. When you know what your identity is, that will help you to overcome whatever situation it is you're going through currently, or an ongoing feeling of anxiety that you deal with a lot. When you know what that identity is, and you get the question that you're going to use constantly to ask yourself, put it somewhere that you'll see, put it as your phone background, put it on your fridge, and keep reminding yourself when you feel those feelings come up, when you feel stressed and anxious, you'll see it and you can pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, you know, what would my soul do? Or what was that question that you've created? So I'm going to finish now before we go into Q&A. You just have to think about this, you know, with stress, when it comes to stress, you break the cycle or the cycle does break you. Don't leave it to get to breaking point. Start to, you know, limit 3 little micro stresses in your life this week and come back to that method that I've just been through the next time that you feel stressed or anxious. And really start to step into the identity step by step. The more you actually embody it, the more it becomes your normal and your reality. And just pattern interrupting those stressful thoughts has such a huge, huge effect in our mind. So I will look at Q&A. Where are we? And see, oh, if there's any. Okay. Where are we? So, how to not think about work when I'm planning. Wow, yes. I mean, working in an operating room, incredible. You're like a superhero, first of all. So yeah, I think, okay, so many of us find it really hard to switch off when we get home from work and to be fully present with our loved ones and with ourselves. So something that I love to do is to actually journal out everything that you've been thinking about that day from work. So get it all out, you know, whether it's the experiences obviously you're having in the operating room, anything that you're kind of like going over in your head about that particular patient, that particular surgery, just have a conscious, unconscious stream of thought and just let it out. So you can essentially mind dump at the end of your day before you get into bed, and then start to do the things that will calm your nervous system. So things like in the evening, I love a little routine of doing the stuff that makes my nervous system relax. So dimming your lights when you get back, so we don't want that light pollution, doing a journaling and a mind dump to help get all those thoughts out of your head. And then, you know, putting something, doing something like legs up the wall, but on your bed just before you sleep, and doing like a little breathing exercise, just breathing in, concentrating on essentially a mantra that will help you to relax. So breathing in the word calm and breathing out, imagine breathing out the stress of the day. So just doing that on a cycle for 5 minutes at the end of your day and just allowing yourself to come back into your body. But truly, I think that journaling and getting all of those racing thoughts out of your head at the end of the day before you go about the sort of evening wind down or being present with your loved ones can really help, because so often we go back to think, oh, what about that? What about that? What about that? Where are we? Sorry, I'm just looking at these. How do you stop your heart racing when a specific email comes through? Yes. So with this, when those kind of things happen and you get a trigger and it's like immediate sense of stress, it's essentially, again, using that when you know, okay, your heart is racing. It's what we call the power of the pause. So taking a pause, taking a step back, taking a deep breath in, and extending your exhale. That's a really important thing to remember when you're trying to calm your nervous system, to extend your exhale. So take a deep breath in and then extend the exhale to tell your body, no, all is well. And then ask your brain in that moment to bring you a useful thought or a calming thought about that email, about why you'll be able to handle it. And then, consciously choose again. So you want to tell your brain, because it's going to go on this spiral of, okay, well, this email could be really stressful. This could really upset me, whatever it is, from whoever it is. Tell your brain, bring me a thought to remind me why I can handle this email, or to remind me, to help me, bring me a useful thought in this situation, and actually break that cycle again. Sorry, I'm just reading. Okay, sorry. So when you're talking about, like very, very big stress, it's really important to look at the mind, like you talked about, and I'll talk a bit more about this now, and then also to bring the stress out of your system. So if you are suffering from sort of stress with, unbalanced hormones and things like that, it's looking at, okay, how can I do things like increase my protein in my diet that actually helps balance our hormones out? How can I eat anti-inflammatory at this time to help, again, support my body? Because cortisol long term, as we know, is inflammatory, and that's why we have such issues in the body with, like, say hair growth and all these different things. So trying to make your physical life as anti-inflammatory as possible, doing your Pilates, cutting out sugar, cutting out alcohol, trying to make it sort of, upping your protein and just making sure you have an anti-inflammatory lifestyle in terms of what you're putting into your body. But then it's looking at that emotional and mental stress. So I would really, really, every single day, try to go into your emotional stress and your mental stress in a process of asking yourself with a journal, first of all, how do I feel? And then how do I want to feel? So those two questions. This will help you navigate the mental stress in your mind, but also process the emotional. So just free flow it and let it out all day. Let those emotions come out onto paper. And then how do I want to feel? And once you have asked yourself the question, how do I want to feel? Look at how far apart those feelings are and ask yourself, okay, what is one small micro intentional action I can take today to help move me further towards the feeling that I want? So if you want to feel calm or happy, whatever it is, it's the opposite of how you've sort of been feeling. You can ask yourself, okay, what's one, write the little list down again. What's one little micro intention action I can take, whether it's doing a meditation, which I also really, really advise. And, what is a friend that I can call that I know brings me comfort, going on a walk, listening to an inspiring podcast that's upbeat, trying to really look at little things that will help move you out of that. But I really, really recommend as well, if you're under a lot of stress, to start to meditate. And although that can seem very overwhelming sometimes when we're stressed, meditation, the more that we meditate, the more that a part in our brain is weakened called the me center, which is essentially creating that feedback loop in our head more easily that we can't, pattern interrupt that negative thought cycle. So the more we meditate, the easier that pause that I talked about, that pause in space and that ability to choose again, the easier that becomes for us. And actually, if you're someone who really struggles with meditation, I have a process I created called Reiki visualization meditation. And we have those in our membership as a full library of them, but I'm actually doing an event on Monday evening with a Reiki visualization for half an hour, as well as stress management tools and a New Year's workshop. So it's going to be an hour and a half online. So if you are struggling with stress, it's going to be a really long, in-depth session. So I really recommend coming to that. And you can find the link in the bio on my Instagram or on the PDF on my website. So yeah, that's really to start to try those Reiki meditations and start meditating is a really powerful thing. I think we've run out of time now, so I'm just going to.
That was incredible. Can you hear me, Alice?
I can hear you, yes. Hi.
That was amazing. I've made so many notes. I really feel like you break it down so well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think people are gonna have a lot of value from that. So thank you so much. We were sitting here like we were like, oh my God, that's me. Oh, that's you. That's what we need to do. My friend's laughing in the background.
You just like realize it's us. It's not so funny, right? But it's
I
everyone's the
know.
same.
I know. And we were going to each other, that's you. And she's going, well, I think that's you. But thank you so much. That was really, really good. And thank you for doing the Q&A as well.
You're
I
so
love it.
welcome. So
And
welcome.
we will see you soon. We're sending out a recording to everyone, so I'm going to have to rewatch that and take more notes because I couldn't catch up.
I
But
know, so that's why with the PDF that Sarah attached to the resources,
yes,
it's all that's all broken down in there for that second method. So that's good.
okay, and everyone can download that. So if you click on resources, open it up, you can actually download and save, just so you know. So thank you very much, Alice. That was incredible. I'm going to message you after.
You're so welcome. Have an amazing rest of the event.
Thank you. Thank you
And
so
thank you for
much.
having me.
My pleasure. We have SIF coming up in 45 minutes on the business masterclass, everyone. So go and have a break, grab a coffee or whatever you need to do, and we will meet again in 45 minutes, which is my 5, your 4 p.m., UK 4 p.m. Sorry, I keep confusing everyone. So we'll see you in a little while. Thanks, everyone.